Coming up here on Philadelphia Eagles Now, my name is Chase Sr. We have to have an honest conversation about Eagles offensive coordinator Kevin Patullo. We're 2 games into the year, 8 quarters of football into the 2025 campaign, and a lot of this fan base already wants Nick Sirianni to fire the Eagles offensive play caller. I see where a lot of you are coming from, and I understand your frustrations. We're going to take a look at the numbers, some of the trends for the Eagles offensively to start off the year. We're going to do a film study as well. You don't want to miss that. Also, the Tush push, once again, the center of controversy across the entire NFL. Before we get into those 2 topics, a reminder, subscribe to the channel. It's free. I'm never going to put Philadelphia Eagles Now behind a paywall. I care too much about you, and I love what I do. I just want you to subscribe and join the family here at Chat Sports. We're 14 subscribers away from 128,000 subscribers, so closing in on another milestone, and I want you to be a more informed Eagles fan. I want you to get entertained, and I think that what we do here is very special. So lock us in. You won't regret it. And we're bringing you daily and year-round coverage of the EAGLES Eagles. All right, let's go. Only in the city of Philadelphia will a majority of the fan base want Eagles offensive coordinator Kevin Patullo fired after 8 quarters of football. And I love my city. I will always represent and defend my city. It is so special how passionate we are and how knowledgeable we are as a fan base. We have very high, extraordinarily high football IQs, but sometimes we can act on emotion. Sometimes we can get a little bit over our skis as far as our reactions, especially early in the year. Now, I understand why people are very frustrated with all of the talent on the offensive side of the ball, with what the Eagles have done or haven't done for that matter to start off the year in 2 games here in the 2025 campaign. First up, home opener, season opener, couple of Thursdays ago, September 4th, at the Link against the Dallas Cowboys as the Eagles hoisted that Lombardi banner. On offense, Philadelphia only accumulated 302 total yards. They averaged 4.9 yards per play against a defense that was without Micah Parsons, with a bunch of new moving parts, and a new defensive coordinator in Matt Eberflus. Jalen Hurts through the air, 19 of 23, 144 yards. The Eagles on the ground ran it 38 times, a bulk of those carries to Saquon Barkley and Jalen Hurts for 158 yards, 4.2 yards per pop. The Eagles did score touchdowns on their first 3 drives of the game, but then in the second half, no touchdowns, only settled for a Jake Elliott field goal, and after that weather delay, they didn't have any rhythm. And the offensive showing, pretty lackluster after recess. The Eagles did win time of possession, but I think they left a lot of meat on the bone in week 1 against Dallas. Week 2 offensively against the Kansas City Chiefs. Keep in mind, you're going up against Steve Spagnuolo, one of the top defensive coordinators in the history of the game. I know the Chiefs are talent deficient on the offensive side of the ball, but defensively, they're still pretty damn good, led by Chris Jones and Trent McDuffie, an overall very well-coached unit. And the Chiefs were desperate coming off a week 1 loss against the Chargers. You knew that Spags was going to get very aggressive. He was going to blitz a lot, and he blitzed Jalen Hurts on 60+% of Jalen Hurts' dropbacks yesterday. And the Eagles' offense struggled to handle that. They couldn't really throw it, couldn't really run it as far as manufacturing explosive plays. More on that in a moment. And in totality, the Eagles' offense only gained 217 yards of total offense, 3.7 yards per play. Not good at all. Hurts 15 of 22 for a $101, but with losses, 94 yards. On the ground, 34 carries for 123, 3.6 yards per carry. The big thing here, no turnovers. And the Eagles really try to play clean football and turnover-free football. You do that, you win about 80% of the games in the NFL when you win the turnover battle. Once again, the Eagles winning time of possession. To the point of the Eagles lacking explosive plays, it's not good. And because of that, a lot of fans are outraged, right? The Eagles have 3 pass plays in 2 games of 10-plus yards. The big one, the 51-yarder in week 1 against Dallas. Hurts against Kansas City only completed 1 of 4 passes that traveled 10-plus air yards against the Chiefs. In 2022, for context, Philadelphia is very explosive with Shane Steichen calling the plays. How about how Shane Steichen has Daniel Jones playing well, and the Colts are 2-0? He was the OC and the play caller then, and the Eagles led the league in explosives. These are plays of 10-plus yards with 169 explosive plays. 9.9 explosive plays on average per game. The Eagles offense really took the league by storm. 2023, they weren't good with Brian Johnson as the play caller. In 2024, the pass game was lacking, but they ran it very well. And so far to start 2025, throwing it, running it, a lot to be desired here. Nick Sirianni knows this is a problem for the Eagles. A little bit under the weather today as he addressed the media coming back from that huge win over Kansas City. And he said a big focus in practice this week is going to be on explosive plays. We as an offense want to manufacture explosive plays. And with this much talent, it is a little bit odd that this Eagles offense at times has gone through these lulls. This was a 2023 problem. At times, it was a 2024 problem. And now it's an issue here in 2025. And look, I'm going to defend Kevin Patullo here. He is 2 games into being a play caller as an offensive coordinator in his NFL career. He's worked very hard to get to this point. But so far, as I step aside here, we have seen way too much of this against Dallas and against Kansas City, where Jalen Hurts has plenty of time to throw. He's able to go through his progressions, survey the field, yet what is the constant downfield for Philadelphia in the pass game? There's nothing there, and nobody for Jalen Hurts to throw the football to. Everybody on the field here is covered despite the good protection. This is a play calling problem. This is a play design problem, and it's a scheme problem. And a problem here, too, is that with nothing being open downfield, we've seen a lot of short passes, and we've seen a lot of checkdowns for Jalen Hurts. It's good that he's taking what the defense is giving him, but with Devontae Smith, A.J. Brown, Dallas Goedert when he's healthy, Saquon Barkley, this offensive line, and the talent of Jalen Hurts, him being one of the top deep ball throwers in the NFL, it's an issue that his average depth of target to start the year is only 6 yards, and nobody's able to create separation downfield. So through the first 2 games of the year, that's the lowest of Hurts' career in that span as a full-time starter. 2021, 7.9. 2022, 6.9. 2023, 9.6. 2024, 6.8. And in 2025, 6. And you look at Hurts' throwing chart against the Chiefs in week 2, only 1 play downfield. And that was the big chunk play to Devontae Smith. It was a great one, all-out blitz, great protection from Saquon Barkley and the Eagles offensive line for Hurts to deliver that throw downfield to give Smitty a chance with pressure in his face. It was awesome. But a couple of issues here. The lack of long balls, the lack of deep completions, all of the short throws, and Hurts has never been great throwing over the middle of the field, but there is nothing, zilch, inside the hashes, and rarely is he throwing balls over the middle. Now, sometimes this is on Hurts. There have been guys open. He hasn't pulled the trigger. But I also think part of that is because he's not confident in what he's seeing, because usually there aren't a lot of guys open. And so the Eagles' issues on offense to start the year, there is a lack of explosive plays. The pass game is truly lacking. I think the offense has been very vanilla, and the play calls from Kevin Patullo have been predictable. I do think there is context behind that and reasoning behind that. Nick Sirianni and Kevin Patullo want to play it safe. They want to lean on this Eagles defense. They don't want to turn the ball over. That was a huge problem for Jalen Hurts in 2023. He corrected it in 2024 because the play calling was a little bit more conservative. And when the Eagles win the turnover battle, they are a truly outright dominant team. And going up against Dallas, going up against Kansas City, they've erred on the side of caution playing it safe, especially early in the year with a new play caller when they're trying to get a feel for what they want to do offensively. But this is something that does need to get corrected if the Eagles seriously want to compete for another Super Bowl. Eagles coach Nick Sirianni said this last week. You have no tendencies going into game 1. Well, through 2 games, the Eagles do have a tendency to run when they're under center, running 96% of the time, pistol, running 91.3% of the time, and out of the shotgun, they're running 33.8% of the time. When you compare that to all other NFL teams, the Eagles, here's how they compare. Other NFL teams run it under center 69.5% of the time. Out of the pistol, 62.7% of the time. Out of the shotgun, 26.9% of the time. And so this goes to show you that maybe defenses know that when the Eagles are in these personnel groupings, schemes, or packages, they know what's coming because it's become predictable. I do think a big reason why fans are very annoyed and pissed off with the offensive showing so far through 2 games is because fans have PTSD with what happened from Brian Johnson in 2023. And look, the Eagles started that year very well. What was it, 11-1? Then they collapsed down the stretch. And the Eagles offense then, predictable, vanilla, not creative. Then they were one of the worst teams as far as pre-snap motion. Now they have more pre-snap motion. And Hurts with pre-snap motion last year, one of the top quarterbacks in the NFL. But now fans are saying, this offense, it's not good. It was an internal hire for Brian Johnson, an internal promotion for Kevin Patullo. It's Brian Johnson all over again. Again, I understand where you're coming from. But fans were saying the same thing about Kellen Moore last year this time that they were saying now and are saying now about Kevin Patullo here in 2025, midway through September. Eagles were voicing their concerns about the Eagles offense this time last year, and they were saying Kellen Moore ain't it. But a lot of people are prisoners of the moment, right? And they forget that to start 2024, the Eagles were a pretty mid and average team, not just on offense, ladies and gentlemen, but on defense too. The Eagles weren't really considered Super Bowl contenders until after week 8. Week 1 in Brazil, they won by 5 against the Packers. But then in week 2, they lost to the Atlanta Falcons and choked that game away. Even in week 1 against Green Bay, they turned it over their first 2 offensive drives of the game as Jalen Hurts threw a pick and then fumbled. And then later on, he threw a red zone pick. Then the Eagles only mustered 15 points on the road against the Saints. They barely did anything offensively then. Then they scored 16 points in week 4 against the Bucs. Week 5 bye, they come out of that. They barely beat the Cleveland Browns, and they only scored 20 points. Then the ball got rolling. Week 7 against the Giants, 28-3 win. And then week 8 on the road against the Bengals, 37-17. The run game got going against New York. The pass game got going in week 8 against the Bengals. Then from there on out, the Eagles offense was a lot better. And so these pass game struggles, especially early in the year, they're not really new. They have happened. They even happened last year when the Eagles won the Super Bowl. And they dropped 40 points against the Chiefs in that Super Bowl. Of course, the defense helped them out, and they took advantage of those giveaways, but the Eagles offense was electric, and Jalen Hurts was Super Bowl MVP. So I wouldn't panic just yet. And you look at the numbers here, weeks 1 and 2 here in 2025. Hurts is 34 of 45. He has completed 75.6% of his passes, but only for 253 yards, 5.62 yards per attempt. Remember when A.J. Brown was vocal about the Eagles' pass game last year, late in the year, and he said the biggest issue with the offense is passing it? Well, you look back at weeks 13 and 14, and then after that, the Eagles started to get it going offensively. They had the good showing against Pittsburgh. Unfortunately, Hurts got hurt against Washington. But then in the NFC Championship game and in the Super Bowl, lit the league on fire, right? But in weeks 13 and 14 last year, 25 of 40, his completion rate 62.5% for 226 yards. And the yards per attempt number was at 5.65 compared to 5.62. So the completion rate has gone up by about 13%. The yards have gone up, and the yards per attempt about the same. The Eagles previously have made adjustments to unlock the passing game and unlock the offense. Give credit where credit is due. Nick Sirianni in 2021 made the necessary adjustments offensively, going from a pass-happy attack to a run-heavy approach. Eagles finished the year strong. In 2022, the offense was really good. In 2023, those adjustments didn't happen. But then in 2024, the adjustments did happen. Nick Sirianni is very conscious of making adjustments offensively, defensively, and special teams in season, in game. And that's a credit to him as a coach. And so I have confidence in this coaching staff. They're going to be able to do that. Kevin Patullo is 2 games into being an offensive coordinator, and he's gone up against some very good and experienced defensive coordinators, right? So as an OC, he's had to face Matt Eberflus, and he's had to face Steve Spagnuolo. Not an easy start to the year. It's not going to get any easier in week 3, going up against this Rams defense, which comes to the link, which has been dynamite to start the year. And the back half of last year, they were an awesome defense. And so it still could take a little while. Also remember, noted this earlier, but in case you missed it, the Chiefs also blitzed Jalen Hurts more than 60% of his dropbacks yesterday. I mean, the Chiefs were a desperate team. They played like it. They emptied the kitchen sink. And it's hard to kind of get the offense going against Spags and when Kansas City is blitzing so often. What the Eagles also really value here, not turning the football over. Under Nick Sirianni, the Eagles are 36-2 when they win the turnover margin. They are 8-7 when the turnover margin is even. They are 12-14 when they lose the turnover margin. So you can say what you want about this Eagles offense, but what has Sirianni and Jalen Hurts said time and time again? It's all about winning. And within games, they structure a game plan to focus on finding the best result toward a path of finding the victory. And in this world where everybody is focused on fantasy football and daily fantasy and betting and statistics and highlights in this social media world that leads to a lot of virality, everybody is always obsessed with quarterbacks who put up a bunch of stats. The Eagles don't care about that. The stat that they worry about and the stat that we should all care about is winning football games. And Philadelphia in their last 19 games, 18-1. A big reason for that, they're playing clean ball, which is why they have more of a conservative offensive approach. What's also important here is that the Eagles offensively continue to be clutch and really good on third down. And this is how Jalen Hurts has fared first 2 games of the year on third down this season against the Cowboys. 6 of 6, 78 yards through the air, no touchdowns, no picks, a passer rating of 118.8, and he's had 7 carries for 32 yards and a rushing touchdown, right? That was against Dallas. Against the Chiefs, 6 of 8, 59 yards, no touchdowns, no picks, a passer rating of 95.3, and the huge third down throw to Devontae Smith. Ladies and gentlemen, that right there is winning football. It's not always pretty, but look, this is perfect for Philadelphia. And this is also how football goes. Important to note as well, I think the Eagles really miss players like Will Shipley and Dallas Goedert. What is the best way to sometimes beat the blitz? A screen pass. Will Shipley and Dallas Goedert have their numbers called a lot on those types of plays. Specifically with Dallas Goedert, Philadelphia hasn't been able to find a legitimate backup tight end who can block. And obviously this offseason, the Eagles decided to bring Goedert back, and they didn't find his replacement. But his backup, and the top backup, is Grant Calcaterra. Grant Calcaterra is killing the Philadelphia Eagles right now because he has not been able to improve as a blocker. And he's really bad, frankly, as a blocker in the pass game and in the run game. And Kylen Granson, not much better. But I think the Eagles try to bring in Kylen Granson because he does have a history of being a good blocker. But to start the year, he hasn't been a great blocker. Eagles have tried him out at fullback. I think Cam Watu might be the better fullback. What a great backside block he had on Charles and Menahue yesterday. But Grant Calcaterra struggles as a blocker on full display on the first play of the game from scrimmage yesterday against the Kansas City Chiefs. And if the Eagles are able to execute this play that we're about to break down, our thoughts of this Eagles offense may have drastically changed. And this is where I'm going to give Kevin Patullo credit. He's the one who designed this play. He's the one who called this play. and it was nearly executed, if not for bad blocking. So what you'll see here, Eagles in a pistol set. Again, first play of the game. And you're going to see Kylen Granson to the right of Lane Johnson. To the left of Jordan Mailata right here is Grant Calcaterra. Behind the line of scrimmage, you will see A.J. Brown in motion across the formation, moving from left to right. Look at how this play develops. A.J. Brown, circled here, is not covered. You see the safety right here looking toward the middle area of the field. I believe this is Trent McDuffie here. He's got his eyes in the backfield. A.J. Brown, with his speed, is going to get upfield. Keep it here, Chip, if you can go back to the previous one, because that's the development downfield. That's great, right? A.J. Brown's about to get open. He's about to put his hand up and say, Hurts, hit me. And if you hit me over the top, this is a 70-yard touchdown on the opening play of the football game. But what happens? In the backfield, Kylen Granson is late to get over backside, misses his block, and then Grant Calcaterra totally whiffs on his man one-on-one. So you see Jalen Hurts is looking at A.J. Brown here. But A.J. is not yet open because this is a long developing play out of the pistol. So Granson messes up, Calcaterra misses his block, and what occurs? Hurts gets pressured. Now we can go to the next photo here. Has to step up in the pocket. He fumbles. And when A.J. Brown has his hand up with nobody covering him, when if Jalen Hurts was kept clean, this is a shot over the top. Hurts can't make the throw because he's pressured because Calcaterra and Granson mess up with their blocks. And then Hurts ends up having to step up in the pocket. He fumbles. This play is spoiled. And so if the Eagles actually execute on this play, it changes a lot of our thoughts on the play calling, the play designs from Kevin Patullo, the Eagles pass game, generating explosive plays. So obviously you got to look at the tape sometimes and say, Patullo drew that up. But Granson, Calcaterra missed on their assignments. And upon going back and watching that game, there were opportunities for Jalen Hurts to pull the trigger. There were open opportunities for receivers downfield. It's not saying that Patullo can't be better, but he called a better game than I thought. And I've seen some conversations on X that if Kevin Patullo doesn't work out, or if the Eagles fire him, and Mike McDaniel, whose seat is so hot with the Miami Dolphins right now because it looks as though the team has given up on him, they had to have a players-only meeting after week one. Never a good sign that the Eagles should hire Mike McDaniel. I'm not going to go to that yet. I do think in the future, though, we're going to monitor what Patullo's doing. We're going to keep a close eye on this Eagles offense. And if it doesn't work out, this is something that I would be intrigued by. Now, Mike McDaniel did move on from Vic Fangio when Fangio was the Dolphins defensive coordinator back in 2023. I think that was more of the Dolphins being soft player-wise and not liking Fangio's old school mentality. And we've seen that the Dolphins are a soft organization as a whole. Part of that is because of Mike McDaniel. But man, when he first took over Miami, that offense was explosive. That offense was innovative. It was creative. He came up under Kyle Shanahan. I'm always a fan of a Kyle Shanahan offense. They're physical. They prioritize running the football. And McDaniel's style of offense was the same general system as Shanahan, but with a little bit more nuance, creativity, and complexities to really fake out and confuse the defense. And so this is a name that becomes an interesting one because I think the Dolphins are going to fire him. I think he becomes available, and maybe he's not cut out to be a head coach. But I like his personality. I like the creativity. I like the offensive mind. And if it's him running the show as an offensive play caller, and if he gets along fine with Vic Fangio, doesn't cause a rift with this coaching staff, and Patullo doesn't work out, this could be a name that really, really can unlock this Eagles offense. I'm not a big Tua guy, but McDaniel has done some great work with Tua as far as analytics and numbers. Now, the offense has tailed off a little bit, but again, his role would be as an OC, not overseeing the entire operation. All right, today's poll question is this. Do you want Kevin Patullo fired right now? Share your thoughts with me down in the comment section. Type yes, type no. These Eagles Super Bowl 59 shirts, thanks to our friends at Fanatics, by the way, on sale. They were $38. They are now on sale for just $18. That's more than 50% off. Head to chatsports.com/SB59 shirt. Get your shirts today. You'll be able to rep the Birds, them being Super Bowl champions. You can look good and save money. All right, got to touch on this because it's a big conversation across the NFL. The Eagles tush push, once again at the center of controversy again across the league. And I'll be honest here, the Eagles did false start on a few attempts yesterday against Kansas City. And Andy Reid, Chris Jones, they are very vocal about that. Even during the broadcast, you could see that there was some early movement from this Eagles offensive line trying to penetrate the Chiefs defensive line, get leverage, and get a push to pave open some yardage for Jalen Hurts for this famous play. And I will say this, while the Eagles did false start on a couple of plays and those penalties were not called, Nick Sirianni also made this point, and I was making this point in the office earlier. If we slowed down every play in the NFL at the line of scrimmage, and we slowed it down to a point where we are going literally frame by frame, you will see false starts, early movement, offsides, encroachment penalties called or seen and uncalled literally all the time. The game of football is so fast, twitchy, quick, explosive, violent, and fast developing. Once the ball is snapped, it is so hard for these officials to see that. Another issue with the tush push is that, yes, sometimes the Eagles literally line up offsides over the line of scrimmage compared to where the ball is when it is snapped. And so I think the NFL just has to do a better job of officiating this play and being more clear about the language of what is allowed, what's legal, where to line up, and they have to call it a little bit better while these games are happening. I'll also say this. This has become a big talking point because nationally televised game yesterday, the ratings are going to be insane. It's going up against the Kansas City Chiefs, and Chiefs fans and their beat writers are such crybabies. We lost because of the tush push. The Eagles got all the calls. That's not why you lost the game. You lost the game because Harrison Butker missed a 58-yard field goal. The Eagles scored. The Chiefs were driving. Travis Kelce dropped a pass. They were going to put 7 points on the board. If it weren't for that drop, Andrew Makuba picked it off. The Eagles won because they made the necessary adjustments in the game and held the Chiefs to under 300 yards. The Eagles won the game because they made the plays late. If you're trying to cry that the Eagles won this game just because of the tush push, you don't know ball. And you can tell that Chiefs fans aren't really used to, in recent memory, losing a lot because they're coming out with excuses out the wazoo. I'll always stand by this when it comes to the tush push. You can't penalize a team for perfecting something. The tush push brotherly shove is solely a Jalen Hurts and Philadelphia Eagles play. Even when the Eagles run this without Jalen Hurts and their offensive line, Tanner McKee, Kenny Pickett, they can barely execute it because those quarterbacks are not Jalen Hurts, and his ability to get low and squat 500, 600 pounds pushes the pile. There are teams all across the NFL who try to run this play. Even a player like Josh Allen, who's like 6'6", 240, 250, can't execute this play because he can't get low and he doesn't have as strong of a lower half as Jalen Hurts. And so just because the Eagles do it so well doesn't mean it should be banned. But because it's the Eagles and they've had so much success and it is unstoppable, that's why people want it banished from the NFL. The NFL also cares a lot about the television product, and people don't like watching this play. Nor does Roger Goodell. You saw the stoppages in the NFC Championship game yesterday when the Eagles were running this, and it caused some commotion on the field. If it impacts the aesthetic nature of how the game looks and is played, the NFL wants football to be aesthetically pleasing, right? And so if people continue to complain about it, I do think that the NFL owners after the year are going to try to vote to ban this play. Dean Blandino saying in front of a national audience, I'm done with it. I'm done with trying to officiate it. I think that's ridiculous. I mean, Dean, are you going to cry about it? Your job is to literally be an officiating expert. Give us some analysis as far as the officiating call and tush push, as compared to saying, oh, I throw in the white flag, I surrender. I can't talk about this any longer. It's ridiculous. Adam Schefter on ESPN today saying this game was lost for the Kansas City Chiefs back in February, back in March, when the NFL owners voted to not take the play away. Really, Shefty? I know you know ball. The Chiefs made all of those mistakes. They lost the turnover battle. They didn't make the big plays. They didn't make the clutch plays. They missed a field goal, the pick. That's why they lost the game. Not because of the damn tush push. And unfortunately, due to the outrage during such a huge game with so many eyeballs on it, it just wouldn't surprise me if yesterday leads to the ban of the tush push after this year. Here's how Jalen Hurts has fared on the play this year. It has kind of been unstoppable here. And if the Eagles don't have this in their arsenal in short yardage situations, it is going to impact how they execute and how they perform on these short yardage plays, because this is a staple play in their playbook against the Cowboys. 3rd and 1 from the Philadelphia 22. Hurts picked up 1 yard. So conversion successful. 3rd and 1 from the Philadelphia 32. 1 yard pickup. Successful. It's almost like the Eagles ran the tush push so much because of all of the outrage. I mean, they ran it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 or 7 times against Kansas City. 3rd and 1 from the KC 43, 2 yard pickup, successful. 3rd and 1 from the KC 1, no gain, unsuccessful. But then 4th and 1, Eagles score a touchdown. 3rd and 1 from the Philadelphia 25, they pick up 1 yard. 2nd one from the KC 32, no gain. But then 3rd and 1, they pick up 2 yards. So teams have adapted. They've been able to stop it more than in 2022, but it's still a borderline unstoppable play. People try to say it's not exciting, that it's not a football play. I disagree. I mean, it all comes down to physicality, hat on hat, big boy football, and I really like that type of style of physicality, but we continue to see that wane across the NFL as the game becomes more finesse and less physical. All right, give me a follow on X and Instagram at Chase_Senior. Couple of long shows today. I understand that. Appreciate Chip for producing them because obviously a lot to be talked about. But man, the Eagles season is underway, and we just love talking ball.